We're live, and by we, I mean it's just me because Perry's not here, so I've never had to hit the go live button before. But wow, this is gonna be kind of weird. Not gonna lie, you know, I don't normally frequently talk to myself or talk into the void that is the internet, but I'm gonna try, and I'll try for as long as people want to watch and talk about the Packers. So, I mean, we're off, so we may as well get to it. Hi, Janelle. Hi, Nitsuj, Justin spelled backwards. Please let us know in the comments what you prefer to be called so that we can continue to call you that, because I know that we've called you both. So thank you for joining. Tonight I am drinking one of my favorite Wisconsin beers. It is an Oktoberfest from New Glarus called Staghorn. But there's a lot of Packer stuff to talk about, so that's pretty exciting. We are officially 12 days away from the cut down from 80 to 53 players. Cut down day is September 5th, and kind of blows my mind a little bit that it's already almost September. It feels like it was just March and we were allowed to go outside. And then in less than 3 weeks now, we have Packers football kicking off against the Vikings in Minneapolis. So just a lot that's going to happen in 3 weeks. I bought a house. That was a big thing. That's also why Perry's not here today. She's not in the house that I bought, but she is moving from her own apartment in New York to another apartment. I'm selling my condo, so at any moment I may be asked to leave for a showing and the stream might end. Or I'll take you with me to my car where I sit when the showings take place. But send in any of your Packers questions. I will be here for as long as there are questions, and if there are no questions, then this is going to be a real short show because I don't know if I can do this for 30 minutes, but we're going to try. And a Facebook user, that is absolutely correct that I am never alone because I have my Zadarius Smith candle. So kind of funny, I guess, but I've slowly been boxing up my Packers office during all of these showings because I don't want people to walk off with some of my valuables. Not that I think anyone would, but I mean, Z is too cool to just let him like wander off. I know he doesn't have legs, but somebody coming in here would probably have legs to take him from me and arms. So yeah, let's talk about the Packers because I am, ooh boy, this is going to be a doozy, and I haven't even started really drinking this yet. So while I wait for the questions to roll in, I did get a question on Twitter before the show started. So one of the questions, there we go, Pack Daddy, thanks for the question. We were literally just going to talk about this. And when I say we, I mean me, because I'm alone. So who's impressed you most from camp so far? Honestly, this one's tricky because we don't have access to a lot of what we're seeing from camp. So, I mean, I trust guys like Aaron Nagler, Andy Herman, a lot of their, perspectives on things, Wes Hodkowitz, Mike Spofford from Packers.com. But, it seems like Tim Boyle, as weird as that sounds, has had one of the most impressive training camps. And that's exciting to me. I mean, I think that that's what you want while you let Jordan Love kind of develop. You don't really want him to have to take on the QB2 role, especially in this kind of season with COVID and, wondering he had that condensed preseason or the condensed off season to get acclimated. So I think having Tim Boyle as this really reliable, really solid QB2 going into this season is going to do a lot for this roster. If, knock on wood, something should happen to Rodgers where he can't play for a game or two. But we're going to just not worry about that. Rodgers is going to play a full season, and he's going to win his third MVP. And then he's going to win Super Bowl MVP. So let's talk about, well, you know what? Let's talk about some players on the defensive side of the ball from training camp. Christian Kirksey, if you've watched Happy Hour before, listened to Pax What She Said, you know that I'm a huge Christian Kirksey fan. I absolutely love him. I was so excited when he came to Green Bay. They kind of signed him right under the wire, right before all of the restrictions were in place for free agency. And I think that he's kind of picked up right where he left off. So if you look at the relationship that he had with Mike Pettin, getting drafted to the Browns when Mike Pettin was the head coach, he really has the ability to be what the Packers need in the middle of the defense. And no disrespect to Blake Martinez, but I think Christian Kirksey is a little more athletic, I think he gives them more sideline to sideline ability. I think that he's a thumper, and I think that he can cover. So I think that he kind of covers all the bases for your inside linebacker. And honestly, he's a leader, which is what you want in the middle of your defense. He's coming in as a veteran, knowing that he's going to be wearing that communication helmet, which is huge. You don't really want a rookie to be taking those snaps. And, maybe a guy like Kamal Martin would impress enough for you to have that trust. We expect Ty Summers to take a jump. Oren Burks has looked really good, but I do think that there's a lot to like having that free agent acquisition. And, you have a veteran because, again, with everything going on in this kind of uncertain offseason, this condensed training camp, no preseason games, a lot of your younger guys just don't have time to acclimate like they would in a normal season. Perry and I talked about this on Packs What She Said, where sometimes you just got to get hit. And I've obviously not played football at a professional level. I'm 5'3", so good luck to me. And I would probably die if I got hit. But it's just not something that, these guys aren't used to playing at an NFL level. And even if you're playing against third stringers in the preseason, these are still NFL players. So I think that, it's going to be kind of a slow acclimation period getting into the start of the season. We might see the Vikings game might look a little sloppy just because these guys aren't taking those preseason reps to kind of get used to playing football again. But I think that that's when the padded practices will come in and help. Let's see. Let's go to the questions. This is so much to manage by myself. How do you feel the outside linebackers position will shape up? Wow. Yeah. Mike Pettin had said, I think in March or April, that this was one of the better outside linebackers units he'd ever been a part of. I mean, you have Za'Darius and Preston Smith, who both made the NFL's top 100, one of the better tandems statistically in this season in Packers history. Both had career highs in sacks. And then you have Rashawn Gary, 12th overall draft pick from 2019, who has been working out like a crazy person this offseason. He's basically shed all of his weight, put on more muscle, and has basically said that he's growing into his grown man body, which is terrifying. So those three are locked and loaded. But then you have Tim Williams, who was a third-round draft pick from the Ravens, who has looked really good by all accounts in training camp. Jonathan Spider Garvin has looked really good. He kind of brings a new dynamic to the defense, really kind of thin, agile, quick, can bring pressure with speed instead of a traditional bull rush. Really like him. I've been hearing that Randy Ramsey has looked really good as kind of that fifth outside linebacker. So yeah, I think this position is absolutely loaded. And I know that a fan favorite is Tipa Galeai. He looks really good too. So I think that the Packers at this point probably only keep 4, 5 max. They're not going to keep 6 outside linebackers, but that fourth spot, somebody very talented is not going to make this roster. And, they're probably going to end up on a different team. But, yeah, really a lot to like in this position. And I think, honestly, it helps that defensive line depth that the Packers are lacking. So you hope Kingsley Keke takes a jump. Montravius Adams has the toe injury, so we don't know what his timeline is like for return. But if you have guys like Rashawn and Za'Darius that can kind of roam, then that benefits your defensive line because you might be able to field all 4 of your edge rushers at the same time in some of these crazy defenses that Mike Pettin likes to scheme up. Let's see. This is quite the question. If I say wide receiver, am I a jerk? Do I suck if I say wide receiver? Are we allowed to talk about wide receivers anymore? I don't know. It's hard to know before the season's played, but I think there's a part of me that says cornerback because I'm not sure what happens with Kevin King. But again, Josh Jackson is a name that has looked really, really good in training camp, and they've been playing him on the boundary, which is where we know that Kevin King would be playing. So if Shandon Sullivan is taking over as slot corner permanently, and Josh Jackson looks really good on the boundary, then maybe you don't have a need for corner there. I think a deal gets done with David Bakhtiari, but it could end up being a tackle maybe, just to give them some swing depth. Speaking of depth, Jared Valdir had made a comment about calling him to be back on the roster after Rick Wagner got injured in practice on Thursday. So, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, this is one of the deeper rosters I think the Packers have had in recent years. I think probably the only position that we can rule out at this point is quarterback, because wouldn't that just be so great if the Packers took another quarterback in the first round and there was controversy for another offseason? That would be so much fun to talk about in the media. And it probably won't be a tight end either, because drafting a tight end in the first round is silly. Allen Lazard, big season, yes. But I think that ball is going to go in a lot of different directions. So I think that Aaron Jones is going to get his touches. I think A.J. Dillon is being groomed to get his touches. I think that Jay Sternberger and Bob Tonyan are going to get their touches. I mean, Matt LaFleur didn't rule out Bob Tonyan being number one on the depth chart for the tight end. So I think that this is just a loaded room. EQ and MVS have both looked really good. And I don't think anybody really, surpasses Allen Lazard as wide receiver 2 to start the season. I think he's kind of got his spot kind of defined. But yeah, I don't know if I'd say he's second on the team in yardage, just because, like I said, I think that ball is going to get passed around a lot. And it honestly wouldn't surprise me if Aaron Jones is second on the team in yardage. But I think that he'll at least put up better numbers than Jimmy Graham did in 2019. And if Jimmy Graham is the best player on the Chicago Bears right now, then don't worry, y'all, we're winning the North. Thoughts? Yeah, so this was really cool. Aaron Rodgers had basically said in his presser that he went back and watched some of his film from 2010, and he decided to work on some things that he noticed from his game that maybe were lacking or things that he had shied away from, and he was going to go back and revisit those. So I don't know if you guys remember what happened in 2010, but the Packers won the Super Bowl that year. That was a pretty good year. So if Aaron Rodgers wants to go back and work on his mechanics and work on maybe some footwork or things that, he was looking to improve. I mean, we've seen analysts mention things in his game, like leaving his feet when he throws or, not planting. So it could be something, in his mechanics that he does want to go back and adjust. And if that does happen, the same way that people were talking in 2019, like maybe his shoulder just got the best of him and his arm talent is declining, I don't think any of that is the case. I think that there's a mechanics issue that, leave it to Rodgers, right, to find something out from 2010. It seems very Rodgers-esque to go back and study some of his film and say, oh yeah, I can reincorporate that into my game. So I think that's going to be exciting. Let's see. Who starts more D trains in 2020, and do you see the D? Yeah. I do think if you talk to players like Za'Darius and Preston, I wish I could talk to them. If you listen to their pressers, they had said that Mike Smith, the outside linebackers coach, was really emphasizing takeaways. So that was kind of the one thing that was missing from this defense in 2019, was they had a lot of pressures, they had a lot of sacks, they had a lot of hurries, but they didn't have a lot of takeaways. They didn't have a lot of strips. So they had joked that Mike Smith was going to kind of talk into the universe and it was going to happen for them in 2020. And it's kind of been a point of emphasis for them this offseason and in training camp, was to work on those takeaways. So yeah, I do definitely think that will be a point of emphasis for this defense, because they did obviously really well in takeaways as far as interceptions, but I think those strip sacks and fumbles are going to be really important for that front seven. Who starts the most D trains? It's got to be Za'Darius Smith, right? Just because it's who he is. Jacob Wessendorf, I'm not answering your question, but you know the answer. Greetings from Argentina. Hi, everyone in Argentina. That's really cool that you're making time to watch me talk on the internet about the Packers. Special teams, how is JK doing? Mason, punt returner. By all accounts, JK Scott still looks 15. He still looks like he has a good leg. Mason Crosby is back and healthy. As far as I've seen, he's been nailing all of his field goal drills. So I think the special teams unit will continue to improve. I think for punt returning and kick returns, it's going to be Tyler Ervin. I think that's how he's going to latch onto the roster. even though he's looked really good as a wide receiver, even though now we aren't allowed to know if he's actually still lining up at wide receiver or if he moved back to running back. But I do think that's definitely kind of his best chance at latching onto the roster. And it's not for a lack of talent at other positions, but he gave that unit such a spark that I think he definitely has a lot of promise there. And I think that he will make a significant impact for that unit again. Do both Jair and Savage take a jump this year? Absolutely, I think they do. I would say the thing that's missing from both of their games is the interception totals. And I think that Jair knows that. I think that's what he needs to kind of put himself into that elite tier of cornerbacks. He's had a ton of pass breakups, but he doesn't have the stickiest hands yet. And I think he knew that a couple of them got away from him in 2019. So I think that definitely is going to be a point of emphasis for him going into 2020. And I think the thing that I'm excited about with Savage, and he said it, the coaching staff has said it, he's going to be able to kind of play more freely. I think that when you're a rookie and you're asked to start, he did have the injury, so 14 games, I believe it was. There's a learning curve, and he was asked to do a lot. I mean, we did see him bring pressure a couple times. We saw him in the box a couple times. I think his best fit right now is to just kind of roam as a free safety, the same way that, HaHa had four picks before he was traded in 2018. As that roaming safety, I think that's kind of what we can expect from Darnell too. If you have a guy like Raven Green in the box, if Mike Patton's playing dime, I think that both of these guys will take a jump as far as their, productivity, but I also think that both of them will have an increased interception total in 2020 as well. And I don't really think that's me being optimistic either. I think it's just facts. Have any of the organizational or team adjustments stood out to you? I think my least favorite adjustment has just been not being able to get a lot of information from the media. And I get why they're doing that, because the scouts don't have access to practices. They don't have access to preseason games. And as much as we maybe would joke about the Vikings reading Aaron Nagler's tweets to see who's lining up in with the ones or the twos, it does kind of limit just the fans and their information as well. I know we're having a harder time kind of figuring out who's doing what or what the expectations are for a lot of these players that are kind of playing multiple positions. So it makes sense to me. And I know Brian Gutekunst had said in his presser that they're hoping that this is something that changes when the pandemic ends and we're allowed to have fans back at training camp. So it should just be a one-year thing. But yeah, it's been kind of weird because this seems like the year specifically that we would want those extra details, because we don't have glimpses into what the players are doing. And now they're taking those glimpses away from us. So I understand it from a competitive standpoint, but I don't like it from I want all the knowledge standpoint. Everybody loves John Lovett. I don't know. This is an interesting question, and I think it kind of will end up depending how the Packers want to use him. Because if they need like a gadget tight end fullback, they have Josiah Deguara to do that. But it also sounds like John Lovett has really sticky hands and looks really good. So, it's like coach speak to say, we want good football players. But if you're a good football player, I don't think that the Packers care where you line up. So I think we know, obviously, who the three running backs are with Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and A.J. Dillon. But I don't know if I see them taking a traditional fullback as the fourth guy. I think maybe Tyler Ervin, now classified as a wide receiver, makes them keep 6 receivers instead of 5. But I don't know. Matt LaFleur seemed pretty excited about Dexter Williams and giving him another opportunity. So I kind of feel like it's Dexter Williams' spot to lose. And I know that it's so weird to think about a battle coming down to Dexter Williams and John Lovett, because they're so different in their skill set and what they bring to the offense. But yeah, it's just, although there were reports on Twitter that John Lovett is a more talented Taysom Hill. So you know what? If that's the case, just give him that spot, because I don't want to hear that from Packers fans if they let him go. Let's see. Allen Lazard's 7.5 touchdowns in 2020, over or under? That's a lot. I mean, Devontae Adams had 5, and I think he'll have more than that in 2020. Devontae, not Allen, but I'll say under. I think it'll be like 5 or 6. Because, again, I think that the ball is going to be spread around a ton. So I think that that's going to be the difference, is that there's going to be more people touching the ball, so more touchdowns spread out instead of going to the same couple people. Yash Nijman getting some love on Happy Hour. That's exciting. Love the size of him on the offensive line. Has he shown strides to be able to plug in second string? Well, we don't know anymore. If he's playing with the second string, we don't know where he's taken snaps, which unit he's working with. I know the Packers did really like him before he was injured. He hasn't been able to practice a ton yet. So I think that he'd be somebody that they try to stash on the practice squad. I don't know if he's somebody that will make the initial 53, but I do think that he has the potential to grow into a swing tackle role. But, you know, some of the reports we've seen from training camp are that Alex Light has still looked good. And then if you have the battle between Billy Turner, Lane Taylor, and Rick Wagner, you kind of have a built-in swing tackle, and whoever does not get a starting role between those three. And if Jared Valdir does eventually come back, like he had prompted on Twitter, I don't know. I don't know how many tackles you end up keeping on the roster, but I would definitely say that he would be almost a lock for especially with an expanded practice squad, to go there if he doesn't latch on to the initial 53. How do you see the defense this season? Really good. I think it'll be really good. And it's not just me saying that because I love the defense, but I do. I think that it's another year under Mike Pettin. I think that the defense is just ready to stop talking about the NFC Championship game. And I know that is the game that they put on tape for the world to analyze for the entire offseason. But Kenny Clark had said, we played our worst game, on the biggest stage when it mattered the most. But they did have some really good games where they were stopping the run. They had some games where they forced like 4 turnovers. And, you still have like Kevin King, who's a red zone threat as far as picks. So, yeah, I think the defense is going to kind of come into its own. I think that the run defense, of course, is something that we'll all be waiting on pins and needles to see how it improves. But if Kingsley Keke takes a jump, if Christian Kirksey is able to fill that void, I think the arrow is still pointing up for the defense. I think we have to see improvement in the return game because they were almost historically bad last season until Tyler Ervin came. So I do. It seems like a hot take or something to say that, yes, it'll get a lot better and Tyler Ervin will return like multiple kickoffs for a touchdown. But I think of like one of my favorite special teams plays in recent memory, and it's probably because my husband's a Browns fan and we were there in person. Was the spark that Trevor Davis gave the Packers in 2017 to basically force overtime. The Packers got their last touchdown to tie the game up. So I think that, just those field tilting plays are what the Packers were missing until the end of 2019. And I think that Tyler Ervin gives them a really good chance to kind of bring that back. Ziggy Stardust is watching. I love Ziggy Stardust. Hi, Charles. If Ervin is wide receiver 6, who are the first 5? Well, we know it's Devontae Adams. We know that it's Allen Lazard. We can speculate that it's probably MVS and EQ, so that would be 4. So I think Ervin would be 5 to me, but I also don't know if they keep more than 5 because Jake Kumro has looked really good. He's kind of been a security blanket for Rodgers in recent memory or recent seasons. And then that kind of ties into this question, is Reggie going to make the roster? I know everybody loves Reggie Beggleton, and from everything I've seen, he looks really good. I think that there were questions about what he would look like after playing in the CFL, kind of how he fits with NFL players, and so far he fits. I mean, he's holding his own. He's making impressive plays. There were a couple of videos out of camp a couple of days ago with he and Rodgers connecting on some really nice just anticipation balls. So he could be 6. I think that there's a lot of versatility in this offense. I think the Packers are keeping 4 tight ends for sure. I don't think they'll keep less than 4 running backs. So it just kind of depends. I think that he's also an ideal practice squad candidate if he doesn't get snatched up to play elsewhere, because the guys like Jay Kumro and Reggie Begelton that maybe don't make that initial 53, that depth on the practice squad is going to matter a ton this year. And if you read anything I write for Cheesehead TV, I just talked about that. Guys like Evan Bayless, who would be tight end 5 on the roster. You know the Packers aren't going to keep 5 tight ends, but if something does happen to one of your starters, you know that you have a guy like Evan Bayless who has NFL experience, has played in the offense, is familiar with Matt LaFleur's scheme, that can come in and immediately bridge that gap. Where are you from if you're not from Green Bay? Let me know. Reggie Begelton, you think he's 6? Okay, when will you drink a White Claw for the show, lime specifically? I do have White Claws in my fridge. This is a really specific request, Sanjay, but I mean, I don't know, next week if I remember. Thoughts on the false positive situation that happened to teams such as the Bears? Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm glad that the NFL fixed it so quickly and figured it out. But if something like this were to happen, you know, a couple hours prior to kickoff or on Saturday when there's teams traveling to other cities, I mean, think about the ramifications of, oh yeah, we had 8 positive tests, so Khalil Mack didn't travel with the Bears because he had a false positive. Like, I'm wondering kind of how the testing process is going to look long term, because you know, unless they're getting the tests on like Thursday or Friday so that they know that this travel window is set for them, I think it could cause a lot of problems. Or are they testing right before they enter the stadium? Like, will we have like teams traveling to different cities and then ending up having to quarantine in the hotel? How do they get back to their city and their hometown if they're not able to travel with the team because they have a positive test crop up? So just a lot of moving parts, and it's especially difficult when you have a 53-man roster. You have all of your coaching staff, and you can't bubble. Let's see. Name your top 3 Oktoberfests. Ooh, okay. Staghorn from New Glarus is one. That's what I've got right now. I have to buy it every year. Octillion from Ale Asylum is up there. I don't know about the third one. I don't know. I'm gonna pass. I'll give you 2. But you've probably tried New Glarus, so make sure you find Ale Asylum if you haven't yet. Will you drink for Bakhtiari? Absolutely. I can kind of chug beer. I'm not going to do it right now on this stream, but I can kind of chug beer. It's not going to be that impressive, but I can hold my own. I'm from Wisconsin after all. Dylan was in his shorts again, showing off his legs. Yes, he was. If I had legs like AJ Dillon, it would probably be horrifying because I'm 5'3", but I would show them off too. I'm so excited. I will always bang the drum for AJ Dillon because I wanted him in the pre-draft process. I was ecstatic when he came to Green Bay. And just the thought of him as a bruiser back, which is such an iconic position to play in Green Bay. I mean, like, Green Bay has some storied running backs, but the thought of like a bruiser, and I know that AJ Dillon himself said, I don't want to be classified as just that. So AJ, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to put you in a box, but yeah, good luck tackling him in December is all I got to say, because you're not going to be able to. And I wouldn't even try because it's going to hurt so bad because it's going to be so cold. Zoom drinks with your host, Maggie. 10 out of 10. I'm going to make a note of that. All right. That sounds like a good happy hour promo that we can do. Okay, Aaron, who do you think has more rushing yards, Dillon or Williams? I'm going to say Dillon has more rushing yards. Williams has more receiving yards. I think that maybe is cheating. But I think A.J. Dillon is going to get more traditional looks, and I think A.J. Dillon also still needs to work on his pass protection. So we think of him as being a really big guy, having the ability to defend Aaron Rodgers. But so far, his pass pro has been a little bit suspect. So that's something he's going to have to work on, because we know that Jamal Williams is absolutely the best at doing it. So how's the right side of the O-line going to work out? I was ready to give the right tackle spot to Rick Wagner until he got hurt. So I guess we kind of have to see what the long-term prognosis is of that. I think that it's still kind of his spot to lose. Billy Turner alluded to the fact that he is always playing everywhere. He's never really gotten to play 2 years consecutively at the same spot. So if I had to put money down, and this is why I don't gamble much, Lane Taylor at right guard, Rick Wagner at right tackle, Billy Turner as the swing tackle. So that's my guess, and it's probably going to be completely backwards. So I can't wait for everyone to, quote me on that in 3 weeks. Justin, I don't like that you just come in here and make comments and then leave. First message on Z's shirt this season, happy hour promo. Oh my God. If we could make this happen, I would pay all of the money to whoever did it. And I would be so honored. It is a grind, but it's a fun grind. And I've gotten so many questions. I was supposed to stop like 2 minutes ago, but I'm going to keep going until you guys stop asking questions, or until it's 7 o'clock, because the freezer has a great, great show planned for you at 7 p.m. So make sure that you stick around whenever I tune off, whenever I sign off. They're going to talk about Devontae Adams and his toe injury. They're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers and the way that he seems to always throw a ton of interceptions at training camp, even though it means nothing in the regular season. And then they're going to talk about Christian Kirksey. So make sure that you stick around for the freezer, guys, because as I did not know this, but apparently they bring the funk. Big B's here finally. Big B, I noticed you were absent in the beginning, so I'll forgive you, but thank you for showing up when it counted, buddy. All right, speaking of Rick Wagner's injury, Jared Valdir hinted that he'd like to join the Packers. Okay, I always was kind of on the nay train here, just because I thought that the Packers had plenty of depth at swing tackle. You know, I thought if Rick Wagner doesn't start, he can be your swing tackle. If Lane Taylor doesn't get a starting job, he can play swing tackle. Billy Turner can play swing tackle. But arguably, Jared Valdir might be better than all three of them as a swing tackle. So, I don't know. I guess it would depend on the contract, because if the option is to bring back Jared Valdir or get a deal done with somebody else before camp wraps up and the season starts, then, yeah, that is my answer. Westendorf, I don't know if you're watching on Facebook, but I can't tell, but I appreciate this. Are you still sticking with Ento as your 6th CV? Yes. A lot of the corners have looked really good. Stanford Samuels, I know, is making a ton of noise. I legitimately thought Marc-Antoine Dequoy was going to be the sleeper that made the final 53 as the undrafted pick of the season, and then he was released to get down to 80. So clearly I know nothing, but yeah, I really weirdly love wide receivers converting the corners. I really think that, yeah, he's got a good chance. He's been with the team for the entire practice squad all season in 2019, and I think that he's got a really good shot at developing further. But he kind of falls into Evan Bayless territory, where if he doesn't make the immediate 53 out of camp, he's definitely somebody that you want on your extended practice squad so that they're ready to call up at any moment. We're kind of running out of questions, so I think I'll wrap. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I was very afraid to do this live for 35 minutes by myself. You can follow me on Twitter at Maggie J. Loney. I write 2 articles a week for Cheesehead TV. I podcast once a week with the Pack a Day podcast crew. And I also am co-hosting Pax What She Said podcast with Perry Goldstein, who is my lovely co-host, who will be back next week so that I don't have to solo grind this out. And then, like I said before, make sure that you stick around for the Freezer podcast. They're coming up at 7. Please follow them at Podcast Freezer on Twitter. They are fantastic at what they do. And finally, I've been going back and forth about whether or not I should say anything, but I live in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I've lived here my whole life, and I would just be entirely remiss to not talk about what happened in my hometown last night. So if you're familiar with Kenosha, Wisconsin, it's probably because you heard it mentioned on Home Alone or that 70s show. But last night, my city made national news for the police shooting of a Black man 7 times in the back. And this is nothing new for our nation, but it's new to my city. There are enforced curfews tonight. Buildings have gone up in flames. People are hurting. People are angry and scared and sad, and people don't really know how to support a society that can't support them in return, and I don't blame them for that. So tonight, as with every night, my whole heart is with Jacob Blake, with his family, and with my city. And until systemic racism is addressed and we begin looking at police reform with a critical lens, this will keep happening. And I know that my words mean very little and that words are not enough at this point. So let me end this episode by saying that it's time for action. It's time to educate ourselves and address the problem, because it's not going to go away on its own. It is absolutely time for change. Thank you very much, everybody. Remember that Black Lives Matter. Stay safe and have a fantastic evening. Thank you for joining us for Happy Hour.